Madeline is a senior program manager at the Baumhart Center for Social Enterprise and Responsibility at Loyola University in Chicago. Madeline brings a wealth of experience bridging business skills with social and environmental impact. She currently leads an innovative education program like the Baumhart Scholars MBA and the Baumhart Certificate in ESG, equipping impact leaders to connect profit and purpose. Madeline, the floor is yours.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Charles. And we're rocking and rolling. All right. Well, like I said, if you couldn't tell by our music, we're going to have some fun today. Want to get started by really thanking you, Charles, and the Work on Climate team for the opportunity to share my career journey with all of you. And it's really great to see so many people here today. I'm excited to dive in, and I really do hope you think this is a little bit of fun. Before we jump in, I want to cover our time for the next 75 minutes. And Charles, we can stick on this slide for a second. We're going to start with my journey, my background in building my own career in sustainability, a couple of tips and tools I've learned along the way that I hope you all feel might be helpful. And then we're going to really turn it over to you. We want this session to be engaging, so we're going to have a bit of a brainstorm activity so that hopefully you walk away from the session today with some ideas about how you can turn your career goals into action into 2025. You'll hear a lot about networking today. And if you know me, and I've seen in the chat, I think a few people on the session know me today. You know that I love networking. So we're going to get to practice that in some breakouts, and I hope you get to meet some cool people today. Then we're going to bring everyone back together as a group. We'll talk through some of my takeaways that I hope you have from today. And then hopefully we'll cover and share some of the takeaways you might have from the session. We'll give you some resources for after the session. And then we're going to have a Q&A. So after the presentation, after we've come back together, we've got time at the end of the session for Q&A. We are using a link in the chat. I don't know, Hannah or Luba, if that's been in the chat yet, but we want to collect all the questions in one place so you can use that link to submit your questions as we're going along. That'll help us manage the Q&A at the end, but the chat is clearly accessible to you. So as we're going through, would love to hear your reactions in the chat, and as questions come up, feel free to submit them in the Q&A function. Well, let's do it. Charles, if we can move to the next slide, would love to introduce myself a little bit, and thank you for the introduction you've provided as well. So hi, everybody. My name is Madeline Stanton, and I call myself an ESG nerd. ESG is also known as environmental, social, and governance, and I really do love everything about it, specifically from an ESG reporting and sustainability reporting lens, which probably speaks to my background in accounting and finance, having experience in financial reporting and a true passion for social and environmental impact. ESG reporting and sustainability reporting is like my two favorite worlds coming together. I consider myself a sustainability professional who is currently working in higher education in my role as senior program manager at the Baumhart Center for Social Enterprise and Responsibility at the Quinlan School of Business at Loyola University, Chicago. Quite an introduction there, so you'll probably hear me refer to the place I work as Baumhart or the Baumhart Center. And while I'm talking about that, I got to give a quick shout out to one of my students in the Baumhart Scholars MBA who is on. I'm not sure if there are others, but I saw at least one in the chat. So awesome to see some of our Baumhart scholars on the call today. And what that means in my role, I get to design educational programs around the intersection of profit and purpose, like the Baumhart Scholars MBA, which Charles talked about, a specialized MBA program 100% focused on impact. And really why I do that is to help other folks get the skills to pivot there and grow their careers in social and environmental impact. I like to tell folks that I work at Baumhart because of Baumhart. I did a corporate social responsibility certificate program here about 6 years ago now that truly helped me pivot my career from financial services to corporate social responsibility. And just want to share a quick fun fact about Loyola that some folks on the call might be interested in. But as of January 1st, 2025, Loyola signed a solar contract with the largest solar farm east of the Mississippi River to provide 100% of our electricity needs until 2037. So I don't specifically work in sustainability operations here at Loyola. I work in more the education side of educational programs around social and environmental impact, but it's really amazing to see all the cool work that the university is doing toward their sustainability goals here as well. So to talk a little bit more about my journey, how I got here, and then we're going to jump into some of my tips. So Charles will stay on this slide for a minute. I did not study CSR or ESG. I come from a business background. I studied accounting and finance and started my career in financial services consulting at a CPA firm or certified public accounting firm called EY. At one point in my career, I honestly thought I would have stayed in accounting forever, maybe ended up as a partner at the firm. But it was actually at EY where I discovered my true love for corporate social responsibility. And pivoted my career with the help of Baumhart and a couple of the other things I'll share today to working in a few in-house or corporate roles, right, inside large organizations in corporate social responsibility and environmental social governance. And now today I'm working in academia truly to help more people experience similar career pivots and also elevate their careers and elevate their impact. So through the rest of the session, before we get to the brainstorm, I'm going to be sharing some of my tips that I've collected along the way. It's been a journey, right? My career pivot didn't happen overnight, and it's amazing to see how it's evolved back when I first decided to explore the world of CSR. And a lot of things really helped me get there. For me, it really all starts with networking. I mentioned that already, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. My network has been instrumental in opening doors for me, helping me learn, connecting me with people, and giving me opportunities in this space. I've also done professional development programs. I mentioned the CSR certificate at the Baumhart Center that helped me get some credibility, right? I needed that thing on my resume to show, not only do I really want to do this work, but I know a little bit about it, right? And then events. In addition to networking, I do a lot of my networking at events, and I absolutely love events. Charles, I think we can jump into the next slide about networking. Here we go. So for me, it really all starts with networking, and you truly never know where one coffee chat might lead. I will talk about mine in just a minute. But obviously networking happens in a lot of different forms, and something that has been really instrumental for me has been informational interviews, right, or coffee chats, if you will, right? Meeting with folks one-on-one who have had experience in this space to really learn from them, learn about their experiences, what they're doing today, how they got there, what their backgrounds were, resources that they recommend, asking them to connect me with other folks in their network. So it's really, I think, truly one of the best ways to meet people in this space and, find opportunities you might never have discovered on your own. A couple of my informational interview tips, and I'll pause here just for a moment and say, the session today is really me speaking from my own experience, things that have been helpful to me in my personal career. So hopefully, you find some of these things helpful in your career journey as well. And also once we get into the brainstorm and any of the tips that I share, I'm not a certified career coach. I have learned a lot from career coaches I've been able to witness as part of the Baumhart Scholars MBA. And I've learned a lot from people by witnessing a number of webinars and events. So that's part of what built the presentation today. So my personal tips for informational interviews, building a meaningful network takes time and intentionality. And not every networking connection you make is going to stick, right? We could throw 20 requests out on LinkedIn to connect with folks, and you might not stay connected with those 20 people for 20 years. But I really think that taking a meaningful approach to networking is going to produce rewards, right? It's going to lead to more things. And so for me, I always try to be intentional with the folks I'm reaching out to. I may not know them at all. I'm still doing some cold outreach, but I try to provide a genuine interest in learning about what that person does or has done in their career. And I also try to stay in touch over time, and we'll talk about that in a second as well. My second tip for these conversations is do your homework. Come ready with questions, especially when I was back in the beginning of exploring my career pivot. I wanted to learn a lot from the folks I was meeting with. So I had my list of kind of general questions that I prepared for every informational interview, but also, see what you can learn about that person before you meet with them. Look them up on LinkedIn. If someone connected you with them, ask them what you might ask them about. Try to have some specific questions for them to learn about them in your networking conversations. The next two are a little tough, might be a little awkward right at first, and networking takes practice. Believe me, I have practiced so much with networking over time, and we'll talk about that on the next slide in a minute. But I think, these next two are really important to building a strong network. You got to make the ask. Right? When you're in the conversation with somebody and usually they know what's coming, right? You're there for a reason, right? You're having that conversation for a reason. And you want to make sure you walk away with something that they can, truly help you with. Obviously, the time you spend with them, learning their advice and perspectives is helpful, but maybe there's a job opening at their company. Could they tell you more about it? Or maybe would they feel comfortable making a referral? Is there someone else they can put you in touch with within their network? Is there an event they could invite you to or keep you in mind? Or, ask them to look out for job opportunities that might be a good fit for you. So walking away from the conversation with, an ask from the person you're meeting with really goes a long way. And then staying in touch and sharing your progress. Again, it can be a little awkward, right? You might not know when to reach out, or, if 6 months have gone by, is it weird to, follow up with somebody? Or, if I've just completed this certificate, I don't really like talking about myself and my accomplishments, but they do really want to hear from you. And they do want to celebrate your growth and your development with you. And I'll give a perfect example of this session today. I was super excited about this opportunity. Thank you again, Work on Climate team. And I sent the link to this presentation to a bunch of my mentors. Some of them have been mentoring me for 8 years. And I said, thank you so much for supporting me along the way in my career journey. And I'm so excited for this session that I have coming up, where hopefully I get to do the same with some other people. So, 8 years, right? And I'm still staying in touch with some of the folks who have been really instrumental in my career journey. Also want to talk about on the next slide, if we could jump to this slide. Thanks, Charles. Events. So another part of networking, other than the kind of one-on-one conversations, networking at events is also a fantastic opportunity. Again, I love networking and events, and I probably go to too many events, but I learn so much from events and get to meet some really cool people at events. And I just think it's a great way to build your network. And these can be virtual or in-person events. Wanted to share some of the event event resources that I've collected and built over time. Realized Worth is a social impact consultancy focused on employee engagement, getting employees excited about social impact. And they put out a great conference guide every year about social impact conferences, corporate social responsibility conferences. And I know for a fact their 2025 conference guide is live on their website because they just recently gave a shout out to our conference coming up at the Baumhart Center called Leading for Good in a couple months. So check out the Realized Worth conference guide to see if there's a cool conference coming to a city near you. Association of Corporate Citizenship Professionals is a membership organization for corporate citizenship professionals. It's a great group, have really enjoyed getting involved with that organization, have learned a lot from them. And they have webinars available on their website, and you don't have to be a member to attend some of their webinars. Some of their webinars are free and open to the public. Also GreenBiz, or now called Trellis Group. They have great webinars, webcasts, free and open to the public, available on their website, focused on sustainable business, right? The sustainability space. And they also offer some in-person events. I've had the opportunity to attend one of their conferences. Their circularity conference was in Chicago last year. It was a great experience. And I'll have the opportunity to attend their GreenBiz conference coming up just in a couple weeks in Phoenix. So if anyone on the call today is going to be at GreenBiz in Phoenix in February, send me a note on LinkedIn. Would love to meet up with you there. And actually, I have had the opportunity to get involved with the conferences at GreenBiz through volunteering. So, volunteering is another pathway to explore attending conferences. Reconsidered is another great group. They've got a website, a newsletter, a LinkedIn group, and they have started doing something called coffee chats once a month. I think they're paused right now, but I attended a few in the fall. Very similar to this, but in about a 30-minute window, they squeeze in a topic, a guest speaker, and quick little breakouts. And I've met some really cool people in those coffee chats. I think one of them might be on the session today. Thanks for being here. So another great opportunity to build your network through events, and just right there, those are a mix of both in-person and virtual. And some of the ways that I've approached events during the pandemic in 2020, I think I attended something like 200 events in one year. A lot of those were webinars. And it was really cool because a lot of things were, free and open to the public and online that had never been before. But back then, I used to take notes in every single webinar I attended, even, in-person events, to really help me capture the information and walk away with some takeaways. So you can learn a lot about this space by attending events. It's also how I've built my network on LinkedIn, by following speakers. Occasionally, I'll send invitations to connect with people on LinkedIn, always including some type of message. Hey, I heard you speak at XX event. Really enjoyed what you had to talk about. Would love to connect, right? A lot of times I will just follow the speakers, especially at larger conferences or even webinars, because you can learn a lot just by following people on LinkedIn. Some really cool kind of influential leaders sharing events, job opportunities, updates in the industry. I think that's a great way to learn about the space as well. And then you get to meet really cool people at events and hopefully make them a part of your network as well. Before we jump to the next slide, I just want to go back to something about the informational interviews and, never knowing where a connection can lead, to talk a little bit more about my personal journey and my personal career story. One coffee chat really changed a lot for me. Before I did the CSR certificate program at the Baumhart Center, I met my mentor today. It was an informational interview. She was working in corporate social responsibility. Someone introduced us. We had an in-person coffee, and she really helped me define and explore the world of CSR and see where my skills might be a good fit. She took a look at my resume. She introduced me to the Baumhart Center, said I should check it out, said they had cool events. Little did I know they were offering this corporate social responsibility certificate that I could do a few months later. She encouraged me to do it to get it on my resume. A few months after that, I told her I did the certificate, and she had a job opportunity, and she took a chance on me and hired me in my first corporate social responsibility role. And we're still in touch today. So you really never know where one coffee chat might lead. All right, Charles, I think we can jump to the next slide. Fantastic. I've got 2 more slides, and then we're getting to the brainstorm part of the session. Also want to recognize skill building. As you can imagine, working in academia, you can probably tell I also love professional development. And I think there are just so many ways to develop your skills, but wanted to share a few ideas to consider. And a lot of these things I have done personally to help me grow in my career, but there are tons of online courses out there in really any area of sustainability or climate that interests you. A lot of those courses can often be free. So doing a search on what online courses might be out there, you might be considering going back to school and getting a graduate certificate. We actually have one here at the Baumhart Center, which Charles talked about, the Baumhart Certificate in ESG. And I think my student on the call is in that program as well. So that's, a great opportunity to consider, right? Going back for a certificate and learning in a classroom setting. There are also a lot of leadership development programs out there, which can really help, again, get that credibility on your resume, expose you to more people in the field, and help you learn about skills in the space. And there are also tons of industry certifications out there, specifically from the sustainability reporting space and ESG reporting. The regulatory environment is evolving so quickly that a lot of industry organizations are offering certificates around building your skills in the sustainability reporting space. And of course, so many industry certifications out there across all areas of sustainability as well. And then, make your impact where you can and where you are. You might want to take on a new side project at work to test out a new passion or skill, and to share a quick personal story there. Another big part of why I am here where I am today. I mentioned, pivoting my career from accounting and finance and starting at EY. I was really exposed to the idea of corporate responsibility as a volunteer project at work. I got involved in EY's employee engagement and community engagement work as a volunteer side project outside of my day job. Helped lead some fundraising opportunities for a financial literacy organization, encouraged employees to volunteer with me in the schools, manage the relationship between EY and the nonprofit partner, the financial literacy organization, and really inspired me to pivot my career and do this full time. So you never know where a cool side project at work might lead as well. All right, Charles, I think we can jump to the next slide. This is my last slide on tips and tools, and then so excited to turn it over to you to start brainstorming some ideas for all of you. Volunteering. Volunteering has also been very instrumental to my career growth and career development, which might not be an obvious thing, right? My volunteer opportunities have not been, what I put under my professional experience on my resume, right? Or what I get paid to do, right, in my day job. But I can't tell you how much I've learned and grown as a leader, as a volunteer. So, volunteering is clearly a great vehicle to deliver your impact, but I also encourage you to think about it as an opportunity to learn new skills and develop as a leader. You can see a few ways about how volunteering has helped me learn to grow and develop. I've had the opportunity to lead teams around the world, actually, learning how to manage people, right, especially in a volunteer setting. I've learned how to run events, fundraise, encourage other people to get involved, build relationships, manage partnerships, and I have truly expanded my comfort zone through volunteering. And I'll give you an example there. here, you might see that volunteering has helped me learn how to drive a 26-foot truck, which I never expected to do and probably wouldn't do if you asked me today, I can do it, but I was volunteering with the American Red Cross on a disaster relief operation a few years ago for hurricane efforts. And I was on a team that was distributing emergency supplies to communities. And we had the supplies they needed to get somewhere, and they were getting somewhere on these large trucks. I was fortunate to have some experienced truck drivers on my volunteer team who did some training hours with me, and they said, all right, you're cleared to get on the road, go drive the trucks and get the materials where they need to go. So absolutely wonderful experience, and have truly just grown so much through volunteering as well. And I always put it on my resume, always put it on my LinkedIn. It's great when it comes up in job interviews as well. So important to recognize that work and the opportunities that volunteering may open for you that you might not be getting through your career or your day job. All right. Well, I think that covers it for me talking. I can't wait to get into the second half of this presentation. So let's get started, Charles. If you want to jump to the next slide, let's take some action. So now it's your turn. I really want to turn it over to all of you and take some time to visualize your dream career, brainstorm ideas about how we're going to get you there. And really, the goal from today is not just to listen to me and my career journey, but to walk away with some, a few clear actions and commitments to get you one step closer to your dream job. And you might already be in your dream job, but we can help you, get your impact one step further. So this will be a quiet activity. So I just want folks to know that we're going to walk through this guided brainstorm portion of the session. If you've got your phone, maybe open a notes page. If you've got your computer, open, a Word document. If you have physical paper anywhere near you and a pen, somewhere where you want to document the great things that are going to be flowing in your brain for the next 15 or 20 minutes here. This activity will be, again, quiet, where it's really time for you to think and to noodle on some of these ideas that'll get you thinking about your career goals in 2025. So again, find somewhere to document the things you're thinking about. And this will be a quiet activity. Right after this, we're going to have the opportunity to jump into breakouts with other people. So you'll be in smaller groups where you'll have the opportunity to discuss the activity we've just done with other folks, your reactions, your reflections, and we'll share the prompts as we're going through this activity. If we have the opportunity, Luba and Hannah, to share the questions that we're going to be doing in the next 15 minutes. They'll be in the chat. They'll be right on screen. And this is your time to think. And then when we go into the breakouts, it'll be time to discuss. And we'll spend a couple minutes on each. You're also welcome to share your thoughts and reflections on these questions in the chat. So we won't be coming off mute right now. It'll be a little quiet. I'll try to break the silence, but you can use the chat to share your reflections as we're going along. So I think I've got about 6 prompts. And we've got a couple questions for each one. So Charles, if we want to jump into the first one. All right. So this one, I'm super passionate about LinkedIn as well. I think it's a really important tool for elevating your career and networking and connecting with folks. So would love for you to spend a couple minutes thinking about who is just one person you can follow on LinkedIn after today. Maybe there's this awesome climate leader you really admire, sustainability professional. Maybe you'll follow the chief sustainability officer at Google. Tim Moen is a great influential leader in the ESG space, is someone I follow, but want to give folks a couple minutes to think about, is there somebody who you really admire that you could just follow? right? You don't have to connect. So there are different settings on LinkedIn, in case you weren't familiar, where you can connect with somebody, but you can also follow them. And the follow opportunity lets you see their posts and things that they're doing in your feed. So great opportunity to learn and connect with some inspiring leaders on LinkedIn. So think of just one. And I'll pause talking for just a little bit and we'll jump to the next slide in a minute. And feel free to share ideas and inspiration in the chat. Amazing. Luba, you've put them all in the chat already. Thank you. And I guess 6, and we do have 6. So that's great. Number 1, quick reminder before we jump to the next one. Who's one person you can follow on LinkedIn after today? And you might have a list of 10. And feel free to share those ideas in the chat. And you'll have time to talk about all these questions and prompts in the breakouts in just a little bit. And while I have you, a reminder, we've got it in the chat, but there's a link where you can share your questions for the Q&A. All right. Everybody feeling ready to go to the next one? Let's jump to the next slide, Charles. Number 2, what is just one next step you can take in your job search? Maybe you're looking for a new job externally, or maybe you're looking for some growth internally in your current role. Identifying just one next step that you can take to move forward in your journey. Some ideas are on the slide here. Maybe you just need to start with building a list of job titles to help your search. What those job titles might look like, right? Sustainability manager, climate director, just some ideas about different titles, because we know in this space there are a lot of different things you can call this work. You might be interested in a couple different roles, so listing out what those job titles might be in your search is a great place to start. Maybe you're ready to take the next step and build a list of jobs you want to apply for. I know sometimes it's hard to get to that list of 20 jobs, especially if you're working. So sometimes it's just good to get the list going, throw them into one spot, and when you've got the time, go after the list. But maybe you're ready to build a list of jobs you're ready to apply for. Maybe you've got that list already and you're ready to start with just one job application. Maybe you're not quite ready for that and your resume needs some updating. We know that takes a little bit of time. Also important to keep your cover letter updated. Maybe that needs some work. And a lot of times I've seen cover letters as optional, but highly encourage folks to take that opportunity and submit the cover letter. Maybe you need to refresh your list of references. For folks who are on the internal side, start looking for new opportunities internally, what that could look like. Maybe build a list of skills you might need to pivot, or maybe find folks who you can learn from who are doing that work in your organization. Maybe you want to test out some of those side projects or have a conversation with your manager about taking on more work in the areas you love most about your current role. All right, we'll give it a couple seconds and jump to the next one. I see some folks sharing in the chat. Awesome to see. Keep that going. Feel free. I mentioned this is a quiet activity, but that doesn't mean the chat has to be quiet. So feel free to get your reflections going in the chat, and you'll have an opportunity to get into some great discussion with folks in the breakout shortly. All right, I think we can move to the next one, Charles. Who is one person you can connect with for an informational interview? Maybe that'll be virtual, maybe it'll be an in-person coffee, but who's somebody you can connect with after today? Maybe you'll have the answer to that after the breakouts in a couple minutes. Maybe someone you work with has your dream role. Maybe someone you know has your dream job, or maybe you can connect with someone you met at an event recently, whether in person or online. Follow up and connect. And just one person you can connect with after today. All right, we'll give this one a couple more seconds. All right, Charles, I think we can move to the next one. What is one piece of your LinkedIn profile you can work on after today? Again, I think LinkedIn is super important, especially for job seekers. I also think it's a great way to network and stay in touch with people over time. And there are a lot of different ways you can build out your profile. Again, it takes practice. Starting, just somewhere can really, build your confidence and get you used to it over time. But a couple ideas about just one area of LinkedIn you can work on. Maybe it's time to write your very first post, or maybe you haven't posted in a while. There's recommendation features on LinkedIn where you can have folks write a recommendation for you, and it stays with you on your profile. That's a great way for people to see experiences you've had working with other people. It can be a little awkward, but go for it. Ask somebody you've worked with who has great things to say about you if they'd be willing to write a quick recommendation for you on LinkedIn. It's a pretty easy function to do directly in LinkedIn. You can also write recommendations for other people that you've worked with, and that stays on their profile and your profile as well. Maybe it's time to update your content and include some new keywords for your dream job. If you've been looking at job applications, right, seeing the themes and the skills and the job responsibilities, some keywords that show up, making sure that those keywords are, of course, true, right, to your background and experience, but that you're framing your experiences in the right way to show up for, the experiences you'd like to continue to have in your career. So maybe it's time to update those keywords throughout your profile. All right, we'll give this one a couple seconds, and then I think we can jump to the next one. Awesome. I see some ideas and resources in the chat. Great. Thanks, folks. Okay, next question here. This might be one of my favorites. The last one's pretty fun too, but what is one new event, webinar, article, program you can go after today? And today's a great start by being here. Is there a certificate program you've wondered about, and it's been on your list for a while, but you haven't taken the leap to really put the time into exploring it or going after it? Is there a volunteer opportunity you'd like to take? I'm guilty of this one. Is there an article in your inbox you've been waiting to read? Those amazing weekly newsletters that we don't always have the time to stop and read. Maybe today you take the time to pull that off the to-do list and open just one. Is there a webinar you've been missing out on? You're here today. Thank you for that. Thanks for sticking with us too. But I'm guilty of this one too, right? Is there that webinar that you signed up for during the lunch hour and you keep skipping it, right? Or you're multitasking on email during the whole webinar, right? Is there a webinar that you can, go after and be fully present for and make the space and time for it if you have the opportunity in your schedule? All right, a couple more seconds, and then we've got the last one. Amazing. Thanks, Charles. All right, well, our final brainstorm question, and again, this time has been for you to just kind of think. Hopefully, you take these ideas and put them to use after the call today. And in just a couple minutes, we'll throw you into breakouts where you get to meet folks. Feel free to consider that time open networking, get to know each other, and also we'll share these prompts in the chat. You'll have access to see them in the breakouts to discuss with the folks you're in there too. But last question, really love this one. I can't remember where I heard this, but I loved it when I heard it. What are your professional superpowers and how can you use them to take the next step in your career? Maybe you're a super networker or a community builder, a great people leader. You're hyper organized or the best project manager on your team, a talented storyteller or a natural when it comes to speaking. And hopefully, in some way, we're all technical climate experts in something, right? But what are those things? What are you really good at? What do you enjoy doing? And how can you really lean into those things and help you elevate the next step in your career? All right, Luba and Hannah, while we give folks a few more seconds to think, are we geared up to get the breakouts ready and give some folks a few quick instructions about jumping into the breakouts?
Yes, I think we're good. Luba, if you want to give me a thumbs up if we're good to get everyone into breakout rooms. Awesome. Okay, so we'll go ahead and break off into breakout groups right now.
Yeah, Hannah, let me just share
or
some
do you wanna,
thoughts and then
okay.
send them away. We want
Okay.
to let you know what's happening before we send you away. Just wanted to make sure we were ready. I know that takes some time to get the numbers right, but you'll have the opportunity to be in breakouts with folks now for about the next 15 to 20 minutes. Want to make sure you have enough time to have some good conversations. In there, feel free to consider it open networking, meet folks, get to know each other, but also feel free to reflect on this guided brainstorm we've just gone through. Luba will have the opportunity to share those little announcement banners that come into the room. We'll give you a time reminder because it's always fun when you're middle of the conversation, because we will be bringing back folks to the main room to cover our takeaways for the session, resources, and then get to the Q&A. So we are coming back from the breakouts, but we're going to send you away for about 15 to 20 minutes to connect and reflect on this brainstorm activity. So Hannah, Luba, I think we're ready. Let's do it.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna pause the recording really.
Okay, 1 minute more.
They're coming. All right. I think we've got everybody back, right, Luba? Okay, perfect. And we're recording. We're all good. Well, welcome back from the breakouts. I'm sure you were pulled mid-conversation. Hope you have the opportunity to stay connected with some of the folks you met in the room. Thanks for being here with us, and wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to bring the group back together. Wanted to share a few of my takeaways for all of you today. Curious to hear on our next slide in a minute any takeaways you all might have, and feel free to share those thoughts in the chat. And then we're just a couple minutes away from the Q&A. Maybe we can throw the link to the question link in the chat one more time to collect our questions. But also, I think we've got a great size group right now to come off mute and engage, but in just a couple minutes. So first, my takeaways, thoughts after the session, really, recognizing that our careers are a journey, that they grow and shift and change over time, and small steps to progress in your career journey really do add up to get you one step closer to your dream career, one step at a time. Networking takes a little bit of practice, but it really goes a long way. You never know where one coffee chat might lead. Events are a great opportunity to meet people and learn new things. Professional development opportunities can help you add to your credibility and also learn new things. And volunteering can not only be a way to deliver impact, but it can also be a great way to help you learn new skills and develop as a leader. So a few quick takeaways for everybody. Charles, if we want to jump to the next slide. What are your takeaways? So feel free to get the chat going. I see a few things here, but want to make sure you all, again, have that opportunity to do a quick reflection on if you could just pick one action after today. Maybe it was from the guided brainstorm, maybe it was from something I said, maybe it was from someone you met in the breakout. What's that kind of one thing that's sticking with you that you really want to walk away with after today to do something, right, to really help you build your career and sustainability. And also, making a little commitment to yourself, right? Having an accountability that you're going to actually do that and take that action. So what's that commitment, you want to make to yourself today to get you one step closer to your dream job? So feel free to share any takeaways you might have quickly here in the chat while we get ready for the Q&A and open it up to folks. I think before we open it up to live Q&A, we want to make sure that we recognize questions that have been already submitted. So Charles is going to run through the list of questions that had been submitted. We've got about 10 minutes here for Q&A. So if we've got time after those questions, we'll open it up to the group. But I think Charles,
Yeah, we have some more questions coming in right now, so that's great. The first one, Madeline, that we have are all CSR jobs about sustainability reporting? What other careers are there for people with several years experience from other fields not related to reporting?
Yeah, that's a great question. Appreciate the person who submitted that and for calling me out on that a little bit, right? I'm personally passionate about sustainability reporting, ESG reporting. I've had some experience in my career around reporting, but there are so many different types of CSR jobs, corporate social responsibility jobs out there. There are different, ESG jobs out there as well. So many climate related jobs out there, so many many sustainability related jobs. A couple of examples I'll share, specifically within CSR, right? And even some of the work that I've done, I've focused, a little bit on the S, right? The social side, social impact side from the corporate lens. So I've worked in corporate philanthropy roles where I've had the opportunity to lead corporate grant making efforts and make decisions about where the company's dollars may be going to in terms of supporting different nonprofit organizations, or employee engagement in CSR, leading volunteer opportunities, community engagement opportunities for employees. I've had the opportunity to do work with affinity groups and employee resource groups within CSR, a lot of communications, right? You can do communications and storytelling around CSR. ESG, you could get an ESG role that's on the investing side, right? Or an impact investing, right? Directing investments to social and environmental efforts and organizations. You might be on the operations side in a corporate sustainability job where you're helping the company get closer to their net zero goals, and reducing their emissions and carbon footprint, or introducing reusable silverware, right, into their corporate kitchens, if you will. So so many opportunities within CSR and the climate space. So thanks for asking the question. Charles, do we want to move to the next one? I see we got a
Oh,
few
yeah.
here, so I want to be quick in my responses.
I know they're started to pour in. What are your recommendations for structuring your engagement with thought leaders, either on LinkedIn or in other formats, um, and to make it regimented and develop kind of some actionable outcomes?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think we saw that one in the chat as well, right? Like, how do you filter and manage through it all? And I talked about this in the session too. I'm guilty of, I'm subscribed to a number of newsletters that I stick in a folder in my inbox and rarely actually open. But the headlines, right, really catch me. And sometimes if I see a really interesting headline, I try to actually open the newsletter and, just pull in little things every once in a while. One of my favorite things, again, in the reporting side, but an organization called Data Moran has started putting out weekly regulatory updates. So I think you find that niche area of what you're looking to learn about and what you're interested in, and stay up to date on those things as you can. I think following people on LinkedIn is a super easy way. I think a lot of us are scrolling through our feed on LinkedIn. And so those quick bites of information from those thought leaders hopefully will kind of stick in your head, or, make a note to save it for later when you've got the time. And then again, like approaching your networking in a meaningful way, right? Maybe you're not connecting with 20 people you met in an event last week to follow up with them, but maybe you connect with two, right? So I think, squeezing in the time that you've got to really narrow in and focus on the things that are most important to you, and taking in the information, content, and connections, with the time you have, and being really intentional with it. All right, Charles, give me the next one.
All right, another great one. Do you know of any great programs for getting a good foundational knowledge in the climate space?
I'm sure Work on Climate has some great resources on their website.
Definitely.
So I would definitely, I mean, you're in the right space, right? This is such a great space. So I'd encourage you to check out some of the resources that Work on Climate offers. I have, Charles, I think before we close, I've got my resource slide, which we can talk about in a few minutes, but I have a couple of links to articles that you can explore after this. But one of those is a writer, a contributing writer for Green Biz, and every year she puts out a great article on sustainability credentials and certifications and ways to build your skills in the climate space or in the sustainability space across the board, right? And there are some really great resources in that. I think the one I have linked in the resource I'll share, she had a list of 46 that year. And that might be 2 years old now. I just saw her post her most recent one. She does it like at the beginning of the year. And whatever it was last year, it doubled this year. So, so many great programs. And it can be kind of easy to get lost in like, which one do I do? So asking people in your informational interviews what they recommend, what they've done. And again, focusing in on, what are your superpowers? What are your skills? Where do you want to lean into the space where you can really kind of, provide your focus and your impact in that way?
While we do one more, there's a couple of questions that kind of strike the same theme.
Okay.
One is, if you're at a conference or meeting, what's a great way to start a conversation without being too pushy? And then there's
Mm,
also one around, continuing to foster relationships after coffee chats. How do you straddle that line between feeling like you're bothering them or
yeah.
covering across as too pushy?
Yeah. Well, full disclosure, I'm probably a little too much. I'm probably a little too pushy, but sometimes you have to be pushy, and I probably bother people. If there are any people who know me on this call still, if you know me, I'm sending things your way all the time. But you just have to, when you're entering a conversation that people are already in, right? You just have to kind of watch for the right time. And don't be afraid to just jump in and say, hey, I've attended this event for the first time. What about you? Like, is this your first time being here? How did you hear about this group, right? I think that's always an easy way to start is like, how did you get involved with wherever we are today? I think on the topic of, staying in touch, it's finding the right balance. I would, never be worried that like too much time has passed. Sometimes a year goes by and I haven't reached out to, one of the mentors I've had for a really long time, and something came up and I thought of them. And even though we haven't talked in a year, I send it to them, right? I'm not sending people things every week. But, I think checking in, depending on the relationship, every couple months or, once a year, or really is those things that make you think of them, reaching out and staying in touch over time. And I think anytime you kind of make an accomplishment or a move in your career that you're really excited to share, again, it's a little awkward to say, hey, look at this cool thing I did. But, the folks who are supporting you along the way really do get excited about hearing those things. So that can be a nice signal to reach out to folks who have supported you along the way. I hope that helps for both questions.
Yeah, we still have time for a few more and we can open it up to the audience perhaps as well. But there's one that says, I'm interested in the S in ESG. How do you see that market evolving?
Yeah, I also, share a strong interest for the S and ESG, right? Kind of the social side, social impact side of things. And I know, again, as climate is very broad, right? The social impact sector is very broad as well. So for me, I've leaned into community engagement, employee engagement. I know, a lot of folks who work in the S and ESG work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And so, in terms of the market evolving, if I'm reading into this question correctly, things are always changing, right? And climate change, right? What do we have to do? We have to adapt. And I always try to approach things from, my personal lens. What am I passionate about? What skills can I bring to the table? Where can I make my impact? And as I've built my network over time, hopefully I've started to influence some of those people in my network. My dad is like obsessed with recycling now. I really take the approach of, lean into what you're passionate about, the skills you have, and you'll find the spaces to do the work even as things change. Your approach might change a little bit, but we keep charging ahead.
Thanks, Madeline. What are some ways to leverage non-technical skills in technical arenas? Any thoughts on that, Madeline?
Yeah, if you solve that one, let me know. No, I think, we have to really lean into our skills and our skill sets. And, I love teamwork and teams, right? We get things done in teams. We get things done working together in partnerships. And so I would say have confidence in what you bring to the table. I didn't really talk about this in the presentation, but I've had so much imposter syndrome working in this space, especially because I didn't study, environmental health and safety. I didn't study sustainability, right? Environmental science. I didn't study environmental social governance. So I've really leaned into my personal superpowers and my skills, and I've tried to learn as much as I can and keep those skills sharp and fresh over time to bring what I can to the space. I think if you're talking, super technical, right? You kind of have to have the skills, but that doesn't mean you can't pick them up in a job, learn them along the way, or find, a course or a certification to open the door to get you started. And then, like anything else, you're going to keep growing and learning as you dig into it.
There's one about pursuing different professional development and training opportunities, but with the thought around being also budget conscious as they
Mm,
transition from one opportunity to another. Or are there any free opportunities in
yep,
any?
that's a great question. Um, I try to look for opportunities that are free whenever I can. I go to events that are free, right? I try to find events that are free. I try to find, courses that might be free, even leadership development or professional development programs that are free. I've gotten into conferences by volunteering. So I think there are different paths to explore. And I will tell you, there are a lot of resources out there that are free, especially, online courses, right? Learning tools virtually. It takes a little bit of time to discover and find them, but there are resources out there. From a budget conscious perspective, don't be afraid to ask if you are employed, to ask your employer if they could sponsor, part of a program for you. Or, if you see a super cool program and it's, $500 to do the program, maybe reaching out to the folks who are running that program to see if they have any scholarship opportunities. So, I think you got to hustle a little bit sometimes to get creative when it comes to funding, but there are a lot of, free resources out there in terms of events and courses. It never hurts to ask about volunteer opportunities to get into a conference or scholarship opportunities for a program. And if, an organization you're working for can help sponsor. I
Well,
think
as we
maybe one more, Charles. What do you think?
yeah, we could do one more. We have one on. This is an interesting one. As someone who isn't super knowledgeable in this sustainability, how can I bring value to the person I'm networking with?
Awesome. Thank you. I was hoping you would get to that one. I saw that one. And I think that's such a great question. So, and something I was really actually kind of worried and nervous about in the beginning of my career when I was exploring the pivot, like I feel like I'm taking and taking all from, these other people who are giving me so much and I'm so grateful. How can I kind of give back to them, right? And I think that that's, obviously people hope that you would pay it forward, right, in ways that you can. But, sometimes these conversations are going to be a little one-sided, right? Again, don't be afraid to make the ask. The person you're meeting, be upfront. Hey, I'm looking. I'd love to learn from you. And it would be great if you could, keep me in mind for job opportunities. But then you never know when you can do those same things for someone else down the road. So I think being curious, learning, and as you see things later on that remind you of that person or that they might be interested in, share, or even tell them, hey, I had the opportunity to share this advice with someone else. I think that goes a long way. So while we're up here, Charles, I know we got one more minute. If you could just go back to the last slide for a second. These are my additional resources. I think these links will be available after the call. I can try to quickly throw them in the chat. I know we're right at time, but a blog series I did with Net Impact inspired this presentation. So you can find articles about everything we talked about almost in there. Connect with me on LinkedIn. If we didn't get to your questions today, send me a note, a message to remind me how we know each other. And if you're interested in learning more about the Baumhart Center, there's that link as well. So Charles, I'll turn it over to you for our closing.
Yeah, well, thank you, Madeline. That was wonderful. We appreciate it very much. And thanks to everybody for joining us today as well. Great turnout, great questions. We would love your feedback. So if you have a moment, definitely capture the QR code. We'll also be putting links in our chat for taking a couple minutes out to give us some live feedback and help us improve our work on climate events so that we can support more and more members of our community. If you're not yet part of Work on Climate, check us out at workonclimate.org. We're always looking for great talent and volunteers to help with events like this and other things that we have underway. To learn more about our speaker, obviously Madeline shared her LinkedIn profile, and reach out to her afterwards. And you can connect with the Work on Climate event team at events@workonclimate.org. We'd love to hear from you and have you get involved. So, once again, thank you very much to Madeline. Appreciate everybody joining from everywhere and for submitting all those great questions.
Thanks, everybody.
And
Great
enjoy
to
the
see
rest
you
of your
all.
day or night.